This episode of The Energy Show is sponsored by Solarcraft, providing solar, batteries, and heat pumps to Marin, Sonoma, and Napa counties for over 40 years. Solarcraft's 100% employee owners help our community step out of their carbon footprint and into saving money. Visit solarcraft.com.
So, you want to save the world with clean energy? Make money doing it? Confused about the economic and technical realities of residential and commercial solar, batteries, heat pumps, EVs? Want the real-world scoop on new energy technologies, not manufacturer hype? Then tune in to the Weekly Energy Show, hosted by Barry Cinnamon. Insights from Barry's 40-plus years in the solar and energy industry will help you understand the future ways we'll generate and consume energy. And now, here's Barry.
Welcome to this week's Energy Show. Now, the 30% residential solar and battery tax credit is going to be completely eliminated under the proposed reconciliation bill from Congress. That effectively means that costs will go up by 30% for all homeowners who complete systems after December 31st, 2025. 7 months from now. Now, forget about tariffs that are changing. Forget about crazy high or low electric rates. Forget about local incentives. With the solar tax credit, a simple solar and battery system now costs about $20,000 after the tax credit. On 1/1/2026, without that solar tax credit, that price is going to go up by $9,000, almost $30,000. That's going to have a huge impact on homeowners who either don't yet have solar, first-time solar customers, or homeowners who want to add a battery, or homeowners who want to add more solar panels, or homeowners who want to upgrade their home electrical service, which could be really expensive when it's done as part of a solar project. So, high level, here are the implications of what's going to happen when or if this solar tax credit is eliminated. And I sure hope that everybody's lobbying and advocacy efforts are able to turn this ship around. But what's going to happen is everybody's going to have to pay 30% more for the solar and battery backup power they need. Homeowners' energy bills are going to go up. It's going to kill solar and battery installer jobs. We've already seen what happens in states like California when net metering changes. It's going to be even worse. It's going to hurt these local small businesses, and all the businesses depend on solar jobs. It's going to be harder to reduce emissions, and bizarrely, it's going to make it easier for local utilities to raise rates and take away net metering from existing solar customers because the rooftop solar industry is going to be weakened. So there's something we can do, and that's the whole purpose of this podcast. We need your help. Congress needs to hear from you, solar homeowners, people who live in a building that has solar panels on the roof, people in the solar industry. Congress needs to hear from you. So if you want to keep the 30% solar tax credit, see the link in the post summary description of this podcast. You can screenshot the QR code. You can just type in the URL, and the link is to an organization called the Solar United Neighbors website. Now, for a homeowner perspective, what this means on a national level, my special guest on this week's show is Anya Schoolman, who, not surprisingly, is the founder and executive director of Solar United Neighbors. And the organization helps people across the United States develop locally owned renewable energy projects and fight for policies that support clean local energy. And let me add to that, affordable local energy. Energy that comes locally is more affordable, it's cleaner, it's better, and when you're getting power from 100 miles away or 1,000 miles away or the Middle East oil, it's expensive and polluting. The organization is especially focused on rooftop solar. And interestingly, we were just catching up on this. Anya and I were introduced back in 2012 by this master networker guy by the name of Jigar Shah. He mentioned that Anya was creating a grassroots network to help homeowners install rooftop solar. And that was something that I was looking at getting going, here in California. It eventually turned into the Solar Rights Alliance. But anyway, long intro, but welcome to the show, Anya.
Thanks so much for having me, Barry. It's really fun to be here and talking with you this afternoon.
It's been too long, and it's just the absolute right time, and we all want to put the pedal to the metal and fix this problem. So, but, in spite of my brief intro, tell us a bit more about Solar United Neighbors. And by the way, nice acronym, SUN.
Thanks. It was actually, we got our acronym at a community meeting in DC where we started. We all went around the room and everyone voted on what they thought the name should be. So I can't even take credit for that. Solar United Neighbors represents solar owners across the country. We have more than 1 million solar owners on our mailing list in all 50 states, and we work really closely with the Solar Rights Alliance in California. Well, Solar United Neighbors is a 501c3, a nonprofit, but we have a sister organization, Solar United Neighbors Action, and that's the organization that's leading the campaign to fight against these terrible tax cuts. So we're mobilizing our owners. We're organizing one-to-one meetings with legislators all over the country. We're organizing calls, social media days of action, postcard campaigns, and anybody can get involved.
So what impact can individuals and homeowners have, in Congress? It sounds like such a big ship to change and direction to change, but it seems out of reach. But can individuals filling out your form really make a difference?
Conversation with someone from industry the other day who was here in DC lobbying on the tax credits just before these measures came out. And they were meeting with someone in the House, and the person said, yesterday we had a solar owner come in and they showed us their bill before they went solar and after they went solar and showed us how much money they were making. And we were so impressed. We really thought we should support these tax credits. So I'm here to say it absolutely does make a difference, but we've got to be loud and we've got to be consistent, and we need everybody's help.
We need everybody's help, and I know there are a lot of supporters in Congress, but we need supporters on the Republican side because I would say all the Democrats are lined up. Even Sam Liccardo has a system on the roof that was installed here in Silicon Valley. But what's the hurry to take action? I mean, do we have to take action now, or should we wait maybe till towards the end of the year?
So what's happened is that the House has just released their bill. And so the House bill is their first draft, so to speak, is done, and it's frankly terrible. And so it's really important to have a reaction now to the draft, because they have said, cut the 30% tax credit for homeowners, 25D, cut the tax credit for batteries, and many, many other provisions that are going to severely stymie the solar market. So there needs to be an immediate reaction. We send out 70,000 emails from our network, but 11,000 in the past couple of days. So people are hearing the call. And honestly, it's often emailing is good, but calling is better. And anybody can just Google their senator, their congressman, and then just get patched through and tell them what they think. So the timing is what you were asking about. And so we've got the House bill, and now it's the Senate's turn to do their bill. And so we are pivoting to focus on senators, but honestly, the House still needs to hear from all of their constituents. And we've been meeting directly with 50 different members, Republican members of the House already, in one-on-one, face-to-face real meetings, taking just not us, not my staff, but taking solar homeowners, churches, farms, people that have used solar to stay in business, and they've gone and they've told their congressmen why this was so important to them. So that's what's going to happen. And I'm pretty confident that enough people show up, we'll turn the tide and they'll X out those parts of the proposed legislation.
It's funny. I was watching a Solar Rights Alliance podcast yesterday with Bernadette Del Chiaro, who's in another related organization now. And, she was basically saying those phone calls make a tremendous difference. And so call. A list of emails is good, but when you jam switchboard in Congress, that really helps. But when would this final action take place? I mean, assuming that the Senate and the House of Representatives has to agree on something, they come up with a bill, and then they finalize it, and then it's signed. When is that expected to happen, kind of worst case?
It's a funny question because we have bets on the table as to when it would take place, and we have different sets of assumptions. So the short answer is no one exactly knows. I'll give you the gist of what people are assuming. So the House has now done their bill. The next thing that happens is the Senate will do their bill. And people are talking about somewhere between the end of June and the end of the summer. So over the next month or two, the Senate should do a bill. And once they do a bill and go through the voting processes, there'll be two different bills. And after that starts reconciliation. And reconciliation means you've got one bill on the House side, one bill on the Senate side, and you're trying to make the two into one single bill that can get a vote. And so the thinking is over the next 2 months will be the Senate bill, and then over the summer would be the reconciliation process. And somewhere in September is the most likely time for there to be a bill that gets passed. So that is the general timeline, but anything could slip at any point. And like I said, we're having fun betting dinners and things like that on which month and which date we'll actually get a bill. I'm betting on never, actually, if you want to know, but that's a longer story for another day.
You're a solar optimist like me, but then month of September is scary. I also hear that, there's October is when there's some other financial things that are coming up where we've got to, deal with the budget. So September's kind of a, I'll go along with that September timeframe. But what freaks me out, both from a selfish installer standpoint, but really from a solar customer standpoint, is if the solar tax credit is killed in September, there's not enough time to get a solar and a battery system put on your roof before the end of the year. It has to be sold, it has to be permitted, it has to be installed, it has to get inspected, and then in some cases has to get interconnected. That's almost never a 3-month process, except for a very simple system. And the other thing that people have to remember is the solar industry is going to be super busy in Q3 and especially in Q4. So if somebody comes to us in September or, certainly in October and they say, hey, I really want to do this now, we're going to say, well, it's just going to be really, really hard to do. We can't guarantee we can get it done. As long as people decide quickly, something June, July, maybe August is pushing it, then we're confident we can get it in. But if somebody comes to us in the fourth quarter because, boom, that's when the tax credit is clearly gone, it's not going to have enough time. So, my advice, if you're looking into solar or want to put in a battery, or, we even have customers who put systems in 2001 and, it's time for a new system. It's going to be way more cost effective. It takes a lot of time to design, install, permit, and get the thing registered. And the other thing you have to worry about, this is pretty much the case in most of the country, is the weather's not too good in November, December. So when it's pouring rain or if there's snow on the roof, your installer can't work. So, and the last thing, which is something that when we talk to our suppliers, is there will be equipment shortages in Q4 because everybody else is rushing. So yeah, just that September timeframe is kind of scary from the standpoint of really helping customers get things done. So, the two specific pieces of advice are take action now with Solar United Neighbors. And also, if you're thinking about solar, or if your friend or neighbor needs solar, they got to do it right now. Let me kind of back up. That was my little screed from an installer's perspective. But why are 38 congressional Republicans determined to end this residential solar tax credit, which makes so much economic and environmental sense?
Well, first of all, I want to say I 100% agree with you on the advice that if people are thinking about going solar, they should get it done now. They should not wait another day. They should just get it done because the early drafts are effective the end of this year, not even 1 year leeway or anything. In terms of I don't think anybody knows, and it doesn't make any sense why you'd have so many people opposed to the tax credits. Solar has very deep and broad bipartisan support. Our membership is multi-partisan. I mean, we're across the political spectrum. Solar is not a Democratic thing. And I think that there are some members of Congress who think they're doing a good carrying water for the oil and gas industry or the coal industry. But most of those professionals also feel like solar is part of the mix and should be included. And so I think it really defies comprehension, and people are just misguided if they think they're helping some other sector by trying to keep solar down.
Yeah, maybe misguided and maybe just simply brainwashed by the fossil fuel brain pollution out there. I agree. I look at it from the perspective of it makes a tremendous amount of economic sense. Putting solar on your roof is way cheaper than building a solar farm 1,000 miles away and building, 10 years later have transmission in place. Way cheaper to do that. And then one of the benefits that we see a lot, especially coming up to the July 4th, is it gives people the ability to have energy independence. So you don't have to depend on that utility. You can kind of no longer worry about rate increases so fast. And here in California, in spite of what I think about PG&E, which isn't too much, they've been our best marketing partner because they keep raising rates, going up at the clip of about 10% a year for the last few years. And the projection going ahead is the same. Now, it's not, these are home rates, and the peak rates are just going through the roof. And the second thing is, PG&E is doing a great job with blackouts. We have so many customers who have power failures for, a few hours or a few days, and they're just solar and batteries, the perfect solution. So now that I brought up the utility concept, what do you think the utilities' attitudes are on more of a national level for home solar?
What we've seen is that utilities across the country, rates are out of control. There's a decade or more of maintenance that didn't get done that now they have to pay for. And they would spend all the last decades sending money to their shareholders instead of putting it back into the system. And there is a organized effort to blame solar, blame renewable energy for the rates going up. And it's a don't look here, look over there effort that people really need to just be wiser. I think what we're seeing is even across the political spectrum, we just helped pass a bill in Ohio that turned back utility provisions that were protecting the local coal industry because people got tired of being charged for the malfeasance and poor management of these companies. So even in very conservative states, Florida, Ohio, where we do a lot of work, Indiana, people are really asking tough questions of their utilities, taking a much stringent, much more critical look. And that includes a lot of the elected officials who are sort of done carrying the gravy for the utilities.
Yeah,
We're at the edge of a real turning point.
Yeah, we're still not at that turning point in California, candidly. The legislators, the representatives, the governor, they've gotten so much money from utilities. We basically call it regulatory capture. But, you mentioned this whole thing about how utilities are brainwashing people that solar is the reason why the rates are going up. I mean, it's just typically here. Don't believe your eyes, believe what I'm saying. They're calling it the cost shift, but all you have to do is look at the graph of the PG&E's profits going up steadily over the last 3 years. They hit $2.47 billion in profits last year, a huge record. And it's just amazing that people are listening to the utility incorrect cost shift message and not paying attention to the profit shift. And they've done a masterful job of that. I'd say probably, nationwide, the utilities have probably spent in excess of $100 million convincing everybody and convincing politicians that their way is the way to go and, buy the electricity from them, not from this pesky little solar thing that you're going to put on the roof. Very, very painful and very, very hard to overcome that messaging.
The thing they don't want people to figure out is that they can actually make their own electricity cheaper than they can buy it. That's the fundamentals, right? And anything that can distract people from that fundamental point, they're working on. So
it almost goes beyond that because what's happening in California is they're putting anti-competitive, things that should really be applicable to an antitrust lawsuit, anti-competitive barriers in front of solar. Schools, I mean, there's a bill a couple years ago that the schools were no longer allowed to really install solar systems on their roof. It's crazy. And, also what happened with PG&E, the net metering went away. Now, if you want to put in solar, your payback is much lower. It's actually turned out very, very beneficially that you almost always put a battery in with solar, which is nice. But really, these are anti-competitive efforts and they're successful and they've got the legislators to vote for these stupid things.
Yeah. One of the things that we do at Sun is we try, because we're all over the country except California, we offer a lot of education and training for solar owners. So for one of the things we say is going solar is the beginning, not the end of the process. And so you go solar, then you start to be aware, you know what a kilowatt hour is, you know what your energy usage is, and you're trying to figure out what's next. So you can go to our website, and there's all kinds of resources, trainings, webinars. Also, if you want to get involved in this campaign to fight against these tax credits, you can email us. If you can't find the website, get involved at solarunitedneighbors.org. And that will get you to a page where you have a whole choice of actions, emails, calls, join a day of social media action, do a postcard campaign, organize your own group. And so we're really looking for help to let's get the fundamentals right. Congress made a mistake. The Senate needs to fix it. We're going to see that that happens and then continue to move forward with all the fights at the state level, like the ones you were describing, Barry, where, I mean, California, everyone's just like, oh, how can California be so hard when we used to hold it up as the model of what everyone else wanted to be.
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of times people say what starts in California, the good things start, they spread east, but sometimes the bad things start in California and they spread east. Just out of curiosity, so we want lots and lots of people to go to your website, repeat that again in a minute, but how will people filling out that form with their name and contact information really help? And is there a way you can kind of direct them to a phone number that they can also just leave a message for Congress? I mean, hell, call at 3 a.m. in the morning, call at 10 o'clock at night, leave a message. How is that going to work? What's going to happen to those messages and those emails?
So if they fill out the form, then what will pop up is an email to their elected officials. And then they can go in and customize it any way they want, you know, add their own words, add their own stories, or they can just hit send. And the email will go to their federal elected officials. In terms of calling, first of all, we always encourage people to call. And sometimes we say email first, then call, whatever. We're also organizing like sort of call parties and call banks. And so the easiest thing is if you just sign up on our website, like where to get involved at solarunitedneighbors.org or solarunitedneighbors.org/defend. That gets you to a whole menu of actions. And then you could go in and sign up for like social media day of action, or I want to start a postcard party, or whatever it is that you want it. Like that, everybody feels different and comfortable with different actions. And so we want to help match each person up with the thing that they can do best.
Yep. And so if you get the email about the podcast, if you listen to the podcast, most important thing is to respond. So before we wrap up, I'm just curious, Anya, how did you get so enthusiastic about solar?
You know, it was kind of an accident, Barry. It was 2007. My son was 12 at the time, and he and his best friend, Diego, had seen the movie Inconvenient Truth, and they wanted to do something. And growing up in DC, they didn't think that the government was going to solve the problem. So they decided they were going to solve the problem, and they wanted us to go solar. And back then, since you've been in this business a long time, it was expensive and not that easy to go solar, and especially in a market like DC that didn't really exist. And we couldn't even get any companies to come to the house and look because they didn't want to come into the city. And so they organized this group called the Mount Pleasant Solar Cooperative. We ended up organizing about 100 homes in our neighborhood. And we spent 2 years learning about solar, meeting the industry players, meeting the Public Utility Commission, getting all the rules set because there was no permitting, there was no SRECs, there was no way to register your system, training the fire department. And then in 2008, we took 45 houses solar as a group. And then it spread across DC. And we realized that by putting one of these groups in each political jurisdiction, we could change the policy. And so over years, it went from a really fun neighborhood volunteer thing to eventually we became a nonprofit, and then we added our C4 for the politics side. And it grew first neighborhood to neighborhood, then to surrounding states, and now we're scaling up a national program. So
Wow.
it's it's been a journey, but it sort of feels like I got pushed in a river and washed downstream rather than something that I designed.
Yeah, well, you're certainly afloat and paddling around those rocks and really helping change things. And it's just a testament to the fact that lots and lots of little actions by individuals can make a really, really big impact on national policy. So just a reminder to everybody watching or listening, fill out the call to action with Solar United Neighbors. Save that solar tax credit. And that's all the time we have on this week's Energy Show. Thanks, Anya, for joining me on the show. And thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in. And if you missed any of today's show, you can always go to our website at energyshow.biz and listen to the podcasts.
This episode of The Energy Show was sponsored by Solarcraft, providing solar, batteries, and heat pumps to Marin, Sonoma, and Napa counties for over 40 years. Solarcraft's 100% employee owners help our community step out of their carbon footprint and into saving money. Visit solarcraft.com.